today. World War II was the single largest conflict in human history. Millions died during the war and millions more died after the war. It was a titanic struggle of epic, classically epic that is, proportions, where millions of soldiers were thrown into the cauldron of battle. Now, in the modern era, it is a very controversial subject, with some saying it was a race war. Yeah, right. Some calling it an oil war. Yeah, right. Ultimately, there has indeed been some historical revisionism. Ultimately, when it comes to studying World War II, you definitely need to have a critical and complex mind when studying all the historical documents that are available today. Now, with all that reality aside, let's jump right into World War II Shooter Month. The first game in World War II Shooter Month that we're going to be taking a look at is Call of Duty 2. This game was developed by Infinity Ward and published by Activision in 2005, and was released on the PC in North America, but served as a launch title for the Xbox 360 and various other territories. The developers wanted to create the ultimate Call of Duty experience, where players were thrust into the thick of it. They wanted larger and more open levels, and gameplay that was visceral and fast-paced, and by and large, they succeeded immensely, as the single-player campaign has had tons of detail and effort lavished upon it. Since this was from the early 2000s, Infinity Ward was allowed by their corporate overlords to actually create a real game, instead of some cookie-cutter piece of crap that was designed to please focus groups. This game features a number of changes from the original Call of Duty. The most notable change is, of course, regenerative health. Technically, Halo 2 was one of the earliest big games to bring the regenerative health mechanic to the forefront. Hell, Halo 1 was one of the first big games to bring the dreaded two-weapon heresy to shooters as well. So really, if you want to blame any game that actually started up the modern-day shooting trends, it's technically Halo. Why Halo gets away with it, I'm not entirely sure. I guess Master Chef is just that cool. Because, let's face it, he shoots the alien and isn't afraid of anything. The regenerative health mechanic likely seemed like a cool new idea. You didn't need to hunt for health packs, and all you had to do was hide behind some cover and then get right back into the thick of it. There was less to worry about in terms of gameplay, and all you had to do was focus on shooting the enemy. And for Call of Duty 2, the regenerative health mechanic actually works rather well, as the game wants you to constantly be in the thick of the fighting, and is designed around this concept very well. And I will admit that with the way this game is designed, having health packs would definitely slow the game down a bit. But what makes a good COD a good COD? Surely all CODs couldn't be bad, otherwise they never would have made all that money and sold all those copies. COD 2 was a great game because it allowed you to play the bloody game. There is minimal scripting and minimal turret sections, and when you do have a turret section, you can usually get off the turret and use your personal weapons. This is a game that the developers wanted you to play, and they implemented the traditional COD epic moments in such a way that you, the player, are in control of the game when they happen. The game also does not take away the controls to shove something epic into your face. And as such, there are numerous little details that one will miss when one first plays the game. This game will also let you fail. Many modern day shooters will never, ever let you fail, and will always ensure that you always have plenty of health, plenty of ammo, plenty of everything, so that you do not screw up the sequence of all the various scripted events. Here, you are expected to actually play the game. You never have so much regenerative health that you can just wade through machine gun fire like it was bloody pellets. In this game, you actually have to do things. You don't simply just hit F a bunch of times to pay respects. If there was such a thing in this game, you would likely have to complete 6 bloody objectives before that particular sequence was done. In short, this is a game meant to be played by a player and not simply a Sega CD-styled FMV. There is the two-weapon rule, but in this game we are faced with humies, and only humies. This means that you don't really need a whole arsenal of weapons to fight effectively, and there are not that many different weapons in the game in general. When you pick up an MP40, well, there are not that many weapons that are going to beat it in close-range encounters. When you have an SVT-40, not many weapons are going to be beating it in mid to long-range effectiveness, and when you have the STG-44, well, that's the win the game button in both the game and in real-life firefights. AI in modern games is usually crap. But not so in Call of Duty 2. They actually programmed competent enemies that can and will fill you with lead, and they will actually use tactics to kill you. And like in real life, the here will set up machine guns to fill you with even more lead. The game introduces smoke grenades that will obscure the area with smoke, and thus ensure that the machine goers cannot rip you to shreds with their MG42s. Yeah, the bark is worse than a bite, but why don't you just bite my ass? And if the enemy gets close to you, they will proceed to beat the shit out of you with rifle butts. The levels for the game are really quite fun to fight through. They're not quite as large and expansive and as multi-tiered as other shooters of this era, but these levels are still pretty big in their own right. These levels are also designed to be a little different from other first-person shooter levels of this era. These are designed to constantly have you fighting the enemy, but they are not the constant hallway shooters of the later Call of Duties and later first-person shooter games in general. And they're still big enough that you can find alternate avenues of attack. They are also still big enough that you don't have to complete objectives in linear order. Instead, you can actually complete objectives in just about whatever order you bloody well want. Play your way back in 2005. So, this is a Call of Duty game, right? So where are the turret and vehicle sections? You see, Call of Duty 2 is actually what we'd like to call in the business a good game. So the turret sections are few and far between, and when they're actually there, they're actually pretty bloody fun, and they don't last over long. And then you got the vehicle sections. Are the vehicle sections any good? Well, let's take a look, shall we? It seems like we're actually controlling a vehicle. Oh my god, whatever next, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, in this game, you're not stuck on a turret for 15 minutes at a time, and you're not just stuck riding shotgun on a vehicle. And no, when you're riding shotgun on a vehicle in modern games, you don't get a shotgun. You just have to sit there while all the AI bots have fun. In this game, on the other hand, when you got a vehicle section, you're actually in a bloody vehicle. You're actually controlling the goddamn vehicle. You'd think that other later games would let you do this, but of course not. That might break the scripting, and we can't have that, can we? Yes, like in Call of Duty 1, you get to control a tank, as in you actually ride around in a tank and you fire the weapon and everything. Now, this of course is not War Thunder, but it's still pretty bloody fun nonetheless. So what about the graphics? Because all modern shooters are worried about the graphics. Well, you see, Call of Duty 2, despite being from 2005, still has amazing graphics. What's funny is you can actually play this game in 2K, and it looks amazing in 2K, surprisingly enough. The game has extraordinarily well done animations, and these human models actually look human and actually move in a believable manner. The weapon models are positively groin-grabbingly transcendent, and the only thing that's really aged are the textures. The voice acting for the game is very high quality. None of the performances sound flat and lifeless. In fact, the game feels like you're playing through a World War II film in many respects. One really cool thing is the fact that IW made all the characters yell at one another in combat. Because, as one might expect, in combat, it's really loud and it's hard to hear people when they whisper. And it gives the game that much more authenticity. Music for the game is also decent as well, but plays a limited role as the music of war takes the forefront.
Concealment! Put up a smoke screen! Use your smoke grenade! Get in there, make sure that room's clear! Man down!
Like in the previous game, Call of Duty 2 gives you 3 different campaigns that showed you the face of the European theater of operations. The game begins with a tutorial that is thankfully short and gets you right into the thick of battle. COD this time around starts with the Soviet campaign, and thankfully it actually justifies the tutorial. So many tutorials in first-person shooters go on over long, and sometimes they're just completely nonsensical, like why would a Delta operator need a refresher course? In this game, you start up as a Soviet conscript that had likely never even seen a rifle until this point, so it makes sense for him to have to be told how to aim down sights. The Mosin in this game, thankfully, has a straight bolt instead of a turn-down bolt, and the SVT-40 also makes an appearance and is one of the best early weapons in the game. The SVT coupled with the PPSH is an absolutely deadly combination. Now, if only I could get one of those $300 SVT-40s from Canada. Damn Canadians hogging all the cheap surplus. The game actually has pacing and ramps up the epicness and difficulty as you play the game. The Soviet campaign starts off pretty basic and is a good starter. Then the British campaign ramps up the epicness further and includes the awesome tank attack. And somehow, Captain Price has been resurrected from the grave. Or he just respawned after getting pwned by some dumbass nooblet. Although in all reality, if I was using real gamer speak, they'd be a lot more vulgar than that. There are even a few humorous moments in the British campaign as well. And ultimately, the British campaign is a good middle point for the game. The final campaign for the game is the American campaign, and it starts up appropriately enough on D-Day. But instead of hitting Omaha, you're instead hitting Pointe du Hoc. And in an epic intro, you have to scale some cliffs to get to grips with your foe. Pointe du Hoc is one of the levels that best illustrates how unpleasant war really is. It looks miserable, and this is actually felt by the player as they fight through the level. Real war is not just unpleasant due to people shooting at you, it also has bad weather, bugs, and all sorts of fun stuff. In short, COD 2 was one of the best World War II shooters ever made, and still holds up today. Infinity Ward was at the top of their game. Everything in this game has been painstakingly designed, detailed, and implemented. As this is a PC game, there have been numerous mods created for it. The most complex being Back to Fronts. It has new multiplayer maps, new campaign levels, and in a rather interesting move, allows you to play as the Deutsches Heer. For some, this might seem controversial, but in all reality, it's not the first game to do this, as the single-player campaign in Red Orchestra 2 starts you up playing as the Heer. Adding the ability to play as the Heer took a great deal of testicular fortitude in this day and age, as people are far more sensitive to such things. And no, the campaign does not show the Heer in a super positive light, and no, it does not show National Socialists as great and amazing people. And hell, the campaign is even named Fighting for the Wrong Side. One thing must remember is that those soldiers you shoot by the hundred in other campaigns were, in real life anyway, soldiers just like the player you are controlling. They were men answering the call to duty, and to be certain they fought for one of the worst regimes imaginable, but they still fought for what they believed was right, and did not spend their days cackling about how evil they were. All in all, Call of Duty 2 is an extremely well-made game, and is one of the greatest COD games of all time. Sadly, many developers, including Infinity Ward, learned the wrong lessons from the game, and implemented many of Call of Duty 2's elements poorly in other games. Regenerative health can work well, provided it's done correctly and does not give the player too much health to work with. Fighting guys in different colored shirts can work well, provided they have good AI and are an actual threat. Fast-paced level design can work well, provided there are more paths than just straight ahead. And as you will notice, there are only a very few instances of scripting, and the game trusts you enough to actually play it. In short, when COD is done right, it's easy to see why it became the juggernaut that it is. $20! That's how much you have to pay to play this game on Steam. Is it worth $20? Is there actually $20 worth of content? Well, yes, this is the game from 2005, and they actually put enough content to warrant that high asking price. And even when the Steam sales come, the $20 asking price is not reduced that much, because Activision is very proud of their games. Ultimately, there is more content in Call of Duty 2 than in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Now, I got my copy of Call of Duty 2 at a resale shop for $5, so it's always good to keep a lookout at those particular shops for cheap game deals. And so, I am GeneralLotz, wishing you good Call of Duty World War II, hopefully, and good Battlefield 1, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed my review of Call of Duty 2, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you these awesome game reviews.